In late 2000 Sweden, the economy ran almost entirely on physical banknotes like the one seen here. Every month, right before payday, massive sums of this cash were gathered and stockpiled in centralized distribution centers so citizens could withdraw their salaries. One of the most important hubs in this distribution network, despite housing enough wealth to rival a small country's treasury, the Swedish government declined to classify these commercial cash depots as protected state infrastructure. Because they lacked that specialized security classification, the building's exact architectural blueprints were freely accessible to the public. Anyone could look up the floor plans, trace the internal staircases, and map out the roof layout, layer by layer. Serbian intelligence actually intercepted chatter about a planned helicopter heist on one of these facilities and warned Swedish authorities. Police placed the Västberga depot under high alert. But when the suspected deadline of September 16th passed quietly, the police stood down and returned their helicopters to standard deployment. By withdrawing that protective perimeter, the state left its most highly concentrated economic target entirely exposed to attack. At 5:15 a.m. on September 23rd, a stolen white helicopter drops from the sky, landing directly onto the glass pyramid skylight of the Västberga depot. 3 men jump onto the roof. They bypass the external alarms by swinging massive sledgehammers to shatter the glass beneath them. Dropping inside, they encounter heavy steel doors separating them from the counting room. They rig sticks of dynamite to the frames, blowing through the internal defenses in seconds. Down below, the night shift staff is frantically counting cash when the shock waves from the explosions tear through the facility. Following protocol for a breach, 14 employees abandon the counting room and squeeze themselves into a hermetically sealed airlock designed to hold exactly 1 person. With the staff locked away, the robbers enter the main vault room. They calmly fire up buzzsaws to cut through the heavy steel padlocks securing the cages of cash. They pack 39 million kroner into mailbags, hoist them up through the shattered skylight, and load them into the waiting helicopter. Decades of architectural security were bypassed by raw, aggressive physical force in under 30 minutes. While the robbery was happening inside, a parallel response was unfolding on the ground. The initial break-in triggered alarms at a nearby police station, sending local officers racing toward the cash depot. But as patrol cars approached, they slammed their brakes. The robbers had laid heavy metal chains, studded with tire-shredding spikes, blocking off every single access road to the depot. The officers on the ground had a clear line of sight to the helicopter hovering on the roof. However, strict rules of engagement prohibited them from firing at the aircraft due to the risk of a crash over a populated area. Unable to approach by land or shoot from the perimeter, the police pivoted. They ordered tactical helicopters to scramble from the meticulous hangar for an aerial interception. When pilots arrived at the hangar, they found blinking plastic boxes rigged to the doors. Protocol required them to call the bomb squad. By the time the boxes were identified as empty fakes, the entire police air fleet was grounded. With all response vectors neutralized, the white helicopter lifted off from the depot, vanishing into the morning sky with $5 million. The robbers didn't need to overpower the police. They used chains, padlocks, and plastic boxes to systematically paralyze a highly advanced law enforcement apparatus. The getaway ended exactly as you see it here, a stolen helicopter abandoned in a patch of scrub brush north of Stockholm. Authorities found it a few hours later, triggering a massive nationwide manhunt. Investigators relied on standard forensic work to track down the crew. They matched DNA from a discarded glove left at a bus stop and cross-referenced wiretapped conversations recorded before the heist. The 10 men eventually arrested and convicted were not elite paramilitary operators. They were an assortment of local, violent criminals and a television producer looking for a payout. The success of the heist didn't require criminal genius. It only required a group of average thieves willing to exploit a security infrastructure full of wide-open gaps. The Västberga attack sparked a fierce debate across Sweden. Trade unions and policymakers realized that as long as retail workers and security guards handled massive stockpiles of physical money, they would remain targets. Rather than attempting to build thicker vaults or heavily armed depots, the government implemented a structural patch. They aggressively began phasing out paper money altogether. This chart shows the frequency of bank robberies in Sweden over the following decade. In 2008, there were over 100 armed robberies, but as cash vanished, that number collapsed, plummeting toward zero by 2016. But crime adapted. As the physical cash line bottoms out, a new trend emerges. Theft and fraud shifted entirely online, mirroring digital transactions. Today, Sweden operates with the least physical cash in circulation relative to its economy of any nation on Earth. The robbers in Västberga got away with $5 million. But in doing so, they provided the final stress test that convinced Sweden to delete the physical reality of money from its society.